Welcome to Frema Audiobooks, the place where communication becomes confidence, where knowledge becomes influence, and where ordinary people learn how to express themselves with clarity, intelligence, and emotional strength in every area of life. Today's audiobook is about one of the most valuable skills you can develop as a human being, which is the ability to speak clearly, confidently, and articulately in a way that allows your thoughts to be understood, respected, and remembered by the people around you. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to Frema Audiobooks, like this video, share it with someone who wants to improve their confidence and communication skills, and leave a comment below about the biggest challenge you face when speaking to others. Now take a deep breath, relax your mind, and allow yourself to fully absorb this message. Let's start with part 1. Why most people struggle to speak clearly. Many people believe that being articulate is a talent that some individuals are naturally born with, while others simply lack. But the truth is that articulate communication is largely a skill developed through awareness, confidence, emotional control, clear thinking, and consistent practice over time, rather than something permanently determined at birth. Most people are not incapable of speaking clearly. They are simply overwhelmed internally while trying to communicate externally. Anxiety interrupts thinking. Fear weakens confidence. Overthinking creates hesitation. And emotional pressure makes even simple conversations feel mentally difficult. This is why communication problems are often connected to mindset as much as vocabulary or intelligence. When the mind feels unstable, speech becomes unstable too. And learning to speak clearly begins with learning how to calm the internal pressure that interferes with expression. One of the biggest reasons people struggle to communicate confidently is because they become too focused on how they are being judged, instead of focusing on the message they are trying to communicate, which creates self-consciousness that interrupts natural speech patterns and weakens clarity during conversations. Connection and clarity rather than constant self-evaluation. This shift changes the entire communication experience because focus influences confidence significantly. Another major problem is that many people think faster than they speak, which causes thoughts to become disorganized internally and creates pressure to express everything quickly before losing track of ideas, often resulting in rushed speech, unclear explanations, filler words, and confusion during conversation. The brain processes information rapidly, but effective communication requires slowing thoughts down enough for language to organize ideas clearly. This is why articulate people often appear calm while speaking. They are not rushing mentally. They allow thoughts to form completely before speaking. They pause intentionally. They choose words carefully. And this creates clarity that makes their communication feel controlled and confident instead of chaotic or emotionally rushed. Speaking clearly is often less about speaking faster and more about thinking more intentionally. Fear of silence also weakens communication for many people because they mistakenly believe that confident speakers must fill every moment with words, when in reality, silence is often of the most powerful tools in communication because it creates clarity, emotional control, authority, and space for ideas to be understood properly. Inexperienced speakers panic during pauses. They rush to avoid silence. They use filler words constantly, and they speak before fully organizing thoughts mentally. But articulate communicators understand the value of slowing down. They know pauses create emphasis. They know silence can project confidence rather than weakness. And they understand that calm communication often sounds more intelligent than rushed speech filled with unnecessary words and emotional tension. Another reason people struggle with articulation is because they consume information constantly without practicing expression, which creates a situation where the mind becomes overloaded with ideas while lacking the communication skills necessary to organize and deliver those ideas clearly during real conversations. Many people spend hours consuming content daily. They listen to podcasts, they watch videos, they read articles, but they rarely practice expressing ideas aloud thoughtfully and intentionally. Communication is a skill developed through active use. Thinking clearly internally is different from expressing thoughts clearly externally. Articulate speakers strengthen this ability through repetition. They practice conversation, they explain ideas regularly, and they gradually train the mind to organize information more effectively during speech. Emotional insecurity also plays a major role in unclear communication, because people who doubt themselves internally often weaken their own message, unconsciously through hesitant language, uncertain tone, excessive apologizing, and constant attempts to seek approval while speaking instead of communicating with calm confidence and clarity. The way you speak reflects the way you see yourself. If you constantly doubt your value, your communication often becomes less direct and less confident. You begin softening every opinion unnecessarily. You become afraid of disagreement. And your message loses strength because insecurity interrupts conviction. This is why building confidence internally improves communication externally. The stronger your self-belief becomes, the more stable and clear your speech naturally becomes as well. Many people also struggle with articulation because they never learned how to structure their thoughts effectively before speaking, which causes conversations to become scattered, repetitive, emotionally reactive, or difficult for listeners to follow clearly during important discussions or social interactions. Clear communication usually follows clear thinking. Articulate speakers organize ideas mentally before expressing them. They understand the main point they want to communicate. They focus on clarity instead of complexity. And they avoid speaking emotionally without direction. This creates communication that feels more intelligent because listeners can easily follow the structure of the conversation. Simplicity often sounds more powerful than unnecessary complexity. And clarity creates stronger communication than trying to sound impressive artificially. The environment you grow up in can also shape communication habits significantly because people often unconsciously absorb speaking patterns, emotional communication styles, confidence levels, vocabulary, and conversational behaviors from family members, social groups, and surrounding environments throughout life. Some people grow up in environments where communication is encouraged openly. Others grow up feeling judged, interrupted, ignored, or emotionally unsafe while speaking. These experiences affect confidence deeply. They shape how comfortable a person feels expressing thoughts publicly. But communication patterns can change through awareness and practice. Your past communication experiences do not permanently determine your future ability to speak clearly and confidently. Growth is always possible with consistent effort and intentional development. Another important truth is that confidence in speaking does not come from trying to sound perfect, but from becoming comfortable with imperfection. Because people who constantly fear mistakes usually become more anxious, more self-conscious, and more mentally distracted during conversations than people who allow themselves to communicate naturally without obsessing over flawless delivery. No speaker communicates perfectly all the time. Everyone forgets words occasionally. Everyone makes mistakes. Everyone experiences awkward moments sometimes. But confident communicators recover calmly instead of panicking emotionally. Continue speaking naturally. They focus on connection rather than perfection. And this relaxed mindset actually improves communication significantly because tension decreases while clarity and authenticity increase naturally during interaction. The first step toward becoming more articulate is understanding that confident communication is not about pretending to be someone else, but about learning how to express your real thoughts with greater clarity, emotional stability, structure, and self-confidence over time through consistent awareness and practice. You do not need to become louder to become articulate. You do not need to use complicated vocabulary to sound intelligent. And you do not need to impress everyone to communicate effectively. What matters most is clarity. What matters most is confidence. And what matters most is learning how to remain calm enough mentally to allow your thoughts to flow naturally and intentionally during conversations, presentations, and every important interaction throughout life. Let's move on to part 2, speaking with confidence and clarity. One of the most important habits articulate people develop is the ability to slow down while speaking, because speaking too quickly often creates confusion, weakens clarity, increases anxiety, and makes the speaker appear less confident, even when they actually possess valuable knowledge, intelligence, or important ideas worth hearing. Many people rush their words because they are nervous internally. They fear being interrupted. They fear forgetting thoughts. Or they unconsciously believe speaking faster makes them sound smarter. But rapid speech often creates the opposite effect. Listeners struggle to process information clearly. Sentences lose structure, and the speaker appears emotionally unsettled. Confident communicators understand that calm speech creates stronger impact. They allow ideas room to breathe. They pause naturally. And this slower pace gives both the speaker and the listener more mental clarity throughout the conversation. Another essential skill in becoming articulate is learning how to think before speaking instead of speaking while trying to think simultaneously, because many communication problems happen when people begin talking before their thoughts are organized clearly enough to express effectively. This creates rambling. It creates repetition, and it often causes conversations to lose direction quickly. Articulate speakers usually take brief moments to organize ideas mentally before responding. Even small pauses create significant improvement in clarity. They allow the brain time to structure thoughts logically, and they reduce emotional pressure during communication. This habit also makes responses sound more intentional and thoughtful, rather than impulsive or scattered. Clear thinking creates clear speech. And the more organized your thinking becomes internally, the more confident your communication appears externally. Confidence in speaking is deeply connected to emotional control, because anxiety, insecurity, fear of judgment, and overthinking can interrupt natural communication patterns and make even intelligent people struggle to express themselves clearly during conversations or public speaking situations. Many people focus too much on avoiding mistakes. They monitor themselves constantly while speaking, and this creates internal pressure that weakens confidence immediately. But articulate communicators focus more on communicating value than on appearing perfect. They accept that occasional mistakes are normal. They remain calm when small errors happen, and they continue speaking without emotionally collapsing over every imperfection. This emotional flexibility creates smoother communication because the mind remains more relaxed and focused throughout the interaction, instead of trapped in self-criticism and fear. Vocabulary matters in communication, but true articulation is not about using complicated words to sound impressive, because people often confuse intelligence with complexity, when in reality, the most effective communicators are usually the people who can explain ideas clearly, simply, and understandably without unnecessary confusion or exaggerated language. Many insecure speakers overcomplicate language to appear smarter, but this often weakens communication because listeners become distracted by the complexity instead of understanding the message itself. Articulate speakers prioritize clarity first. They use words intentionally. They avoid unnecessary filler, and they focus on making ideas easy to follow. Simplicity requires confidence because it means trusting that your ideas are valuable enough without needing artificial complexity to impress people. Clear communication often creates stronger impact than complicated speech ever will. Another powerful communication habit is learning how to listen carefully, because articulate people are usually not just strong speakers, but also highly attentive listeners who understand that meaningful conversation depends on understanding others rather than simply waiting for their own opportunity to speak constantly. Many people listen only, partially while preparing responses mentally at the same time. This weakens connection. It weakens understanding. And it often creates shallow communication. But effective communicators listen fully. They observe emotions. They pay attention to tone. And they respond thoughtfully based on what was actually said instead of reacting automatically. This creates deeper conversations and stronger social presence, because people naturally respect individuals who make them feel genuinely heard and understood during interaction. Body language also influences communication far more than many people realize, because posture, eye contact, facial expression, movement, and physical energy all affect how words are perceived emotionally by listeners during conversation, presentations, interviews, and everyday social situations. A person may have intelligent ideas, but nervous body language can weaken the delivery significantly. Poor posture projects insecurity. Avoiding eye contact reduces connection, and excessive nervous movement distracts attention from the message itself. Confident speakers usually appear physically grounded. They maintain calm posture. They use controlled movement. And they allow body language to support communication instead of contradicting it. This creates stronger presence because communication is experienced emotionally as much as verbally. One reason articulate people often appear more confident is because they are comfortable with pauses and silence, instead of feeling emotionally pressured to fill every moment with unnecessary words. Because silence can create emphasis, authority, clarity, and emotional control when used intentionally during communication. Many nervous speakers fear silence deeply. They rush to avoid pauses. They overuse filler words like, like, and you know. And they speak continuously without giving ideas space to settle naturally. But pauses create confidence. They signal calmness. They allow listeners to process information more clearly. And they help the speaker maintain better control over pacing and structure throughout. Control when used intentionally during communication. Many nervous speakers fear silence deeply. They rush to avoid pauses. They overuse filler words like, like, and you know. And they speak continuously without giving ideas space to settle naturally. But pauses create confidence. They signal calmness. They allow listeners to process information more clearly. And they help the speaker maintain better control over pacing and structure throughout conversations. Silence is not weakness in communication. Often, silence creates strength when used with confidence and awareness. Another important lesson is that articulation improves through consistent practice rather than passive learning alone, because communication is a skill developed actively through repetition, social interaction, self-awareness, and continuous effort over time rather than through theory. Without practical experience, many people consume endless advice about communication, but rarely challenge themselves to practice regularly. Improvement requires speaking. It requires discomfort. It requires real conversations. Some of the best ways to improve articulation include reading aloud, recording yourself speaking, practicing storytelling, engaging in meaningful discussions, and learning how to explain ideas simply and clearly. Repetition gradually strengthens fluency. And fluency creates confidence because the brain becomes more familiar with structured communication over time. Your mindset during communication matters enormously because people who enter conversations believing they have nothing valuable to say often communicate with hesitation, insecurity, and emotional tension, while people who trust their thoughts and experiences naturally communicate with greater clarity, stability, and confidence. Confidence does not mean arrogance. It means trusting your ability to contribute meaningfully without constantly seeking approval or fearing judgment from everyone around you. This mindset changes tone, it changes posture, and it changes the emotional energy behind your words. People respond not only to language itself, but also to the emotional certainty behind communication. The more secure you become internally, the stronger and clearer your communication naturally becomes externally in every type of interaction throughout life. The journey toward becoming more articulate is ultimately a journey of becoming more mentally calm, emotionally confident, and intentional with the way you think and express yourself. Because confident communication is not about performing perfectly, but about allowing your thoughts to flow clearly, without fear constantly interrupting your ability to connect, explain, influence, and express yourself authentically. Over time, speaking becomes easier. Confidence grows stronger. Clarity improves naturally. And conversations begin feeling less like situations to survive and more like opportunities to connect meaningfully with people around you. This transformation affects every area of life. Relationships improve, opportunities increase, and self-confidence grows, because once you learn how to communicate clearly and confidently, you begin moving through the world with greater presence, influence, and emotional strength than before. Let's now move on to part 3, developing presence, influence, and strong communication habits. One of the most noticeable qualities of articulate people is their presence during conversations. Because strong communication is not only about the words being spoken, but also about the energy, attention, emotional control, and confidence a person brings into the interaction itself while speaking with others. Presence means being mentally engaged instead of distracted internally. It means listening carefully instead of waiting impatiently to respond. And it means communicating with calm focus rather than nervous urgency. Many people weaken their communication because their minds are scattered while speaking. They overthink constantly. They monitor themselves excessively. Or they become emotionally distracted by fear of judgment. But articulate people learn how to remain grounded mentally during conversations. This grounded energy creates confidence naturally and makes their communication feel more powerful, stable, and trustworthy to the people listening. Another important habit of effective communicators is learning how to express ideas directly instead of hiding behind vague language, excessive explanations, or unnecessary complexity, because clarity creates stronger impact, while confusion weakens authority and makes communication harder for people to follow and remember clearly. Many people speak indirectly because they fear disagreement or rejection. Others over-explain because they lack confidence in their own message. But confident speakers trust simplicity. They understand the value of clear structure, and they focus on delivering ideas in ways that are easy to understand instead of trying to sound overly impressive. Direct communication does not mean being rude. Communication harder for people to follow and remember clearly. Many people speak indirectly because they fear disagreement or rejection. Others over-explain because they lack confidence in their own message. But confident speakers trust simplicity. They understand the value of clear structure, and they focus on delivering ideas in ways that are easy to understand instead of trying to sound overly impressive. Direct communication does not mean being rude or aggressive. It means expressing thoughts honestly, calmly, and intentionally without unnecessary confusion or emotional hesitation, weakening the message itself. Storytelling is another powerful skill that makes communication more engaging, memorable, and emotionally impactful, because people naturally connect more deeply with ideas when those ideas are connected to experiences, emotions, lessons, and real human situations, rather than presented as cold information without emotional connection. Articulate people often use stories naturally while speaking. They explain lessons through experiences. They create imagery through language. And they help listeners feel emotionally connected to the message being shared. Stories create attention. Stories create understanding. And stories make communication feel alive rather than mechanical or emotionally disconnected. This is why strong communicators focus not only on information, but also on emotional connection during conversations, presentations, and social interactions. Confidence in speaking also improves significantly when you stop trying to impress everyone and start focusing on communicating authentically, because many communication problems come from performance anxiety created by constantly seeking approval, validation, or admiration instead of simply expressing genuine thoughts clearly and honestly. People often become nervous because they are trying too hard to sound intelligent or perfect. This creates tension immediately. The conversation stops feeling natural, and communication becomes emotionally forced instead of relaxed and authentic. But articulate communicators are usually comfortable being themselves. They do not need to dominate every conversation. They do not need to prove superiority constantly. And this relaxed authenticity actually makes their communication stronger, because confidence grows naturally when a person stops pretending and starts communicating honestly. Another major aspect of articulate communication is emotional intelligence. Because the ability to recognize emotions, manage reactions, understand social dynamics, and respond thoughtfully during conversations allows communication to remain calm, respectful, and effective even during emotionally difficult or high-pressure situations. Many people communicate reactively instead of intentionally. Anger interrupts clarity. Defensiveness weakens listening. Anxiety creates hesitation. And emotional impulsiveness often damages conversations unnecessarily. But emotionally intelligent communicators pause before reacting emotionally. They choose responses carefully. They remain respectful during disagreement. And they understand that communication is not just about expressing thoughts, but also about managing emotional energy during interaction. This emotional stability creates tremendous strength in both personal and professional relationships. Your tone of voice also influences communication more than most people realize, because tone communicates emotional energy underneath words, and listeners often respond more strongly to how something is said than to the exact words themselves during important interactions and conversations. A calm tone creates trust. A rushed tone creates tension. An uncertain tone weakens authority. And an emotionally controlled tone creates confidence and clarity naturally. Articulate speakers usually develop awareness of pacing, tone, and vocal control over time. They avoid speaking too quietly from insecurity or too aggressively from emotional pressure. Instead, they learn how to communicate with balance. This balanced tone helps people feel more comfortable listening and responding positively during conversations and discussions. Many people also fail to realize that becoming articulate requires patience, because communication skills improve gradually through repeated practice, self-awareness, reflection, and consistent effort over time, rather than through instant transformation after consuming advice or watching a few videos. About confidence and speaking ability. At first, improvement may feel slow. Conversations may still feel awkward occasionally. Anxiety may still appear sometimes. But growth happens through repetition. Every conversation becomes practice. Every interaction becomes experience. And every uncomfortable moment teaches valuable lessons about communication, emotional control, and confidence. This mindset removes pressure, because instead of expecting perfection immediately, you begin focusing on steady improvement and long-term growth over time. Reading regularly is another habit that strengthens articulation significantly, because reading improves vocabulary, sentence structure, comprehension, imagination, thinking ability, and exposure to different styles of communication, all of which gradually influence the way a person speaks, explains ideas, and organizes thoughts during conversations. Strong communicators are often strong learners. They expose themselves to thoughtful language consistently. They learn from skilled speakers and writers. And over time, this exposure improves their own communication naturally. Reading also strengthens thinking itself. And since communication reflects thinking, clearer thinking eventually creates clearer speech. This is why lifelong learning supports articulate communication so effectively throughout personal and professional life. One of the most powerful changes happens when you stop viewing communication as something to fear and start viewing it as a skill you are capable of improving through patience, awareness, and intentional practice. Because fear creates emotional tension, while growth-focused thinking creates confidence and long-term progress gradually over time. Many people permanently label themselves as shy, awkward, bad communicators, or socially anxious. But identity changes through behavior. Communication skills improve through repetition, and confidence grows through experience. The more you challenge yourself to speak, express ideas, and engage with people consistently, the more natural communication eventually becomes. Fear weakens through exposure, and confidence strengthens through action. This process transforms not only communication ability, but also self-belief and emotional resilience. The journey toward becoming more articulate is ultimately about becoming more comfortable with yourself, more intentional with your thoughts, and more emotionally calm during interaction. Because clear and confident communication grows naturally when the mind stops operating from constant fear, insecurity, overthinking, and emotional self-protection during conversations with others. Over time, your words become clearer, your presence becomes stronger, your confidence becomes more natural, and your ability to express yourself improves. In every area of life, from relationships and friendships to leadership, networking, interviews, and personal growth. This transformation changes opportunities. It changes connection. And it changes the way people experience your presence, because articulate communication is not simply about speaking better, but about learning how to express your mind with confidence, clarity, and emotional strength. Let's move on to part 4, becoming a powerful and memorable speaker. True confidence in communication does not come from memorizing perfect sentences or trying to sound sophisticated in every conversation, but from developing a calm and secure relationship with your own voice, your own thoughts, and your own ability to express ideas naturally without constantly doubting yourself while speaking. Many people spend too much energy trying to avoid mistakes instead of focusing on meaningful connection. They become trapped inside their own heads. They analyze every word while speaking, and this mental pressure weakens their ability to communicate smoothly. But powerful communicators understand that people respond more to authenticity and emotional presence than to perfection. They focus on being understood rather than trying to impress everyone around them. And because of this, their speech feels more natural, more confident, and far more impactful during conversations. Another important step toward becoming articulate is learning how to remain composed under pressure, because many people speak confidently in comfortable situations, but completely lose clarity once they feel nervous, challenged, interrupted, or emotionally uncomfortable during important interactions. Pressure reveals communication habits very quickly. Some people begin rushing their words. Others become defensive. Some completely forget their thoughts. But emotionally strong speakers train themselves to stay calm, even when conversations become difficult or stressful. They breathe slowly. They pause before responding. And they refuse to let panic control their voice or behavior. This emotional control creates authority because calmness under pressure naturally makes people appear more trustworthy, mature, and confident in the eyes of others. People who communicate effectively also understand the importance of simplicity, because complicated explanations often confuse listeners, while simple and direct language creates stronger understanding, stronger connection, and stronger influence during conversations, meetings, presentations, and everyday interactions. Some individuals try to sound intelligent by using overly complex words or endless explanations that make communication exhausting to follow. But the most respected speakers are often those who can explain difficult ideas in a simple and relatable way. Simplicity requires clarity of thought. It requires confidence. and it requires understanding your message deeply enough to express it without unnecessary complication. Clear communication is not about sounding smarter than everyone else. It is about helping people understand your message easily and naturally. Your communication style also improves when you become more comfortable expressing opinions honestly without constantly fearing disagreement, because many people weaken their own voice by apologizing excessively, speaking too cautiously, or hiding their true thoughts simply to avoid judgment or conflict from others around them. Articulate people do not need everyone to agree with them. They respect different perspectives without becoming emotionally intimidated by disagreement. They express opinions calmly. They explain ideas clearly. And they remain emotionally balanced even when conversations become challenging. This confidence creates respect because people naturally trust individuals who can communicate honestly without becoming aggressive, defensive, or emotionally unstable during discussion. Another powerful communication habit is learning how to make people feel important during conversations, because truly memorable speakers are not always the loudest or most entertaining people in the room, but often the individuals who make others feel heard, respected, understood, and emotionally comfortable while interacting with them. Many people focus entirely on themselves during conversation. They wait impatiently to speak. They interrupt constantly. Or they try too hard to dominate attention. But strong communicators create balance. They ask thoughtful questions. They show genuine interest. And they make others feel valued through active listening and emotional awareness. This ability strengthens relationships naturally because people are drawn toward individuals who create positive emotional experiences through communication. Confidence in speaking also grows when you stop comparing yourself constantly to other people, because comparison creates insecurity, self-doubt, and emotional pressure that interrupts natural communication and prevents your authentic personality from coming through clearly during conversations and social situations. Every person communicates differently. Some speak with energy. Others speak calmly. Some are humorous. Others are thoughtful and analytical. There is no single perfect communication style. What matters most is authenticity combined with clarity and confidence. The moment you stop trying to copy everyone else and start improving your own natural style intentionally, communication becomes far more comfortable and effective. Your voice becomes more genuine, and genuine communication creates stronger impact than imitation ever could. Another thing that separates articulate people from others is their ability to stay mentally present during conversations. Instead of becoming distracted by overthinking, anxiety, or internal self-judgment while speaking and listening at the same time. Many communication problems happen because people are not truly focused on the interaction itself. Their minds are somewhere else completely. They worry about how they look. They worry about sounding awkward. Or they become trapped inside self-conscious thoughts while the conversation continues around them. But confident communicators stay engaged mentally. They focus on the moment. They focus on understanding. And this presence allows their responses to feel more natural, relaxed, and emotionally connected during interaction. The ability to communicate clearly becomes especially valuable in difficult moments because strong communication can prevent misunderstandings, solve problems, strengthen relationships, and create opportunities that may never exist for people who struggle to express themselves effectively under emotional pressure or stressful circumstances. Life constantly requires communication. Relationships require communication. Leadership requires communication. Career growth requires communication. And emotional maturity requires communication as well. This is why becoming more articulate improves far more than speaking ability alone. It improves confidence. It improves connection. And it improves your ability to navigate life with clarity and emotional intelligence. The stronger your communication becomes, the more influence you gain over your personal and professional experiences. Over time, articulate communication begins transforming the way you see yourself, because every successful conversation, every confident response, and every moment where you express your thoughts clearly becomes evidence that you are capable of handling social interaction with greater calmness, strength, and confidence than before. This changes self-perception gradually. Fear becomes weaker, confidence becomes more natural, and communication starts feeling less like a threat and more like a skill you are continuously mastering through practice and experience. Growth becomes visible not only in the way you speak but also in the way you carry yourself, respond emotionally, and connect with people around you every day. Thank you for listening to Fremma Audiobooks and investing this time into improving one of the most valuable skills you can ever develop. Because the ability to communicate clearly, confidently, and intelligently has the power to transform your relationships, opportunities, self-confidence, and overall quality of life in ways that extend far beyond simple conversation alone. Always remember that becoming articulate is not about pretending to be perfect or becoming someone else entirely, but about learning how to express your true thoughts with greater calmness, structure, confidence, and emotional control over time. If this audiobook helped you in any way, make sure to subscribe to Fremma Audiobooks, like this video, share it with someone who wants to become more confident while speaking, and leave a comment below about the communication skill you want to improve. The most, because your support helps this message reach more people around the world who are learning how to express themselves with clarity, confidence, and strength.